They'll have to know. All right, so
if you want to know my first name, it's my full name is Dr. Robin Puste. It used to be Shepherd. I have no problem with it. I'm not ashamed of that. I go by Dr. Robin or Dr. Puste, Dr. Puste, Dr. P, whichever people. As long as students are able to communicate with me, that's the important part.
Okay. All right. When were you born?
7/10/1955.
You're looking great. 10. Do you consider yourself part of the baby boomer?
I was a baby boomer.
Baby boomer.
Yep, that's for sure. I was born in Salem, Ohio, in a little hospital called Salem Hospital.
How fun.
It's near Youngstown, Ohio, which is actually halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So if you take a ball and drop the two and connect in the middle, there I was, right in the middle of the snow belt.
In the snow belt? That's fast.
Yeah.
What is your earliest memory? How old were you?
I remember driving tractor at 5.
5 years old, driving tractors?
Oh yeah, because we were because we were dairy farmers, farming is very poor. You don't make any money farming, especially back then. And so what we did was they would put me on the tractor, and I was so small that I had to stand on the clutch and grab the steering wheel and pull it down so that I could stop the tractor. Because they would put me in the tractor and they'd say, go down the field, drive the tractor around. We were picking up hay bales, and I'd have to go down this way and then go back around this way and pick up the hay bales and stop at the end.
You were good driving at 5 years old. That's crazy.
I used to rebuild carburetors for the neighbors' tractors when I was very young, between 8 and 10, because it was cheaper. My father gave me a great piece of cardboard, carburetor parts, and the neighbors would bring their carburetors from their tractors, and I would clean them and replace the parts and rebuild them, and then I'd give them back to them with all the gaskets and stuff. And then that was a little extra, when you do lots of other things to make extra money. So that's one of the things I did is rebuild carburetors.
That's amazing. How old do you think you were when you were rebuilding these?
Probably between 8 and 10.
That's crazy.
Oh, 2-3 years of it. And they would go buy the kits. You could order the kit to rebuild the carburetor. And they would pull it off the tractor and they would bring it to my house. And I just had this big piece of cardboard that I would lay down because I didn't want to lose any parts. Being a little kid, you didn't want to lose any parts. You would have to pay for stuff I couldn't pay for. So we would literally... so I would sit down underneath a maple tree and rebuild carburetors.
That's awesome. So for your childhood, did you, it says, do you want to talk about school or friends or anything you did for fun? Because it seems like you worked a lot.
I didn't do a lot. I was in 4-H. I was in 4-H for 10 years, and then I was an advisor for 5 years. So there were 4 of us kids. So we had to challenge to see how many 4-H projects we could take at one time. So we would challenge each other, but we always had a dairy heifer. So the first year you take a dairy calf, then you take a dairy heifer, which is a yearling, and then you take dairy cows. So then after that, you could take all 3. So we would take all 3 every time, and we had to have 3 different breeds because we didn't want to compete against each other. So originally I had a Holstein, and then my brother had an Ayrshire, and my other brother had a Guernsey, and my sister had a Jersey. But then my father said, I'm tired of buying different cows for different breeds and that we're going to combine them all together. So we all went to Brown Swiss.
Pick the Swiss?
Yeah, we picked Brown Swiss.
Is that the one we talked about Borden cows?
Yeah. No, that was actually a Jersey. Elsie used to actually stay with us when we were showing cows. Elsie would actually stay with our cows. We would slide her in with our cows at all the fairs that we were at where Borden's had their display because they didn't want the cow to be damaged at night.
Kidnapped,
kidnapped and that kind of stuff. So they
would hostage.
Yeah, so we would literally take the cow and slide her in with our herd for the night, and then you'd line them up in a big row, and she just fit in, and she fed her the same thing, and that way my brother's friends and anybody and the Borden's guys, which were college kids, could actually go sleep somewhere besides. We were sleeping in the barn anyway, so it didn't really matter.
So they weren't having to stay up all night.
Yeah, so we would take the cows with us.
So it says your teen years, so your adolescence. This class is about development, like when you were a young child, teen, and then we'll get into like mid and later adulthood. So if there's anything in particular that stands out in your memory from like your school friends, first crush, extracurricular activities, chores and jobs.
Well, we didn't have chores away from the farm. You were literally farming all the time. And my brother, so it was a little unfair because back then the eldest son was an important person and girls fell behind all of that stuff. Yeah. So my older brother we were all basketball players, but my older brother didn't have to get up and milk and feed the cows in the morning because he had basketball practice after school. But my sister and I both had to get up, and I used to have to get up with grandma and go find the cows at 4:00 in the morning when it was dark with a flashlight. And then my sister would get up an hour later and she would do all the feeding and stuff. And then my brother would get up and go to school. And that's just the way society was. My little brother didn't have to do anything. He was a spoiled one, so he didn't have to do anything. But so the rest of us we ran the farm because my father worked 2 jobs away from home. It was very difficult with 4 kids and, trying to farm and try to keep up. I grew up kind of poor. But that's farming. Farmers were poor. All of us, was done in particular. So we made do with what we made, and that's why we do 5 acres of produce in the fall. And that's how we would get our fall shoes and our fall clothes. This is, an era where there wasn't a whole lot, and then we would sell apple cider. We'd make apple cider, and then we'd sell apple.
So you're making alcohol cider?
No, just regular apple cider. We would go because people literally would come and buy our apple cider so that they could take it home and make Applejack and stuff out of it. But no, we never did any. Ours was all
above board.
Yes, because we were kids, we were going we'd go to the press every week, and then it was kind of fun to go to the press. We also sold produce at a farmer's market. So what we would do was one of us would have to go in the morning with my dad and take the original produce, and then in the afternoon, later on in the morning, then he'd come back, and then we'd take the truck to set up at the farmer's market, and then we would sell produce that way. But we had to be there by 4:00 because the guys out of West Virginia would bring their produce up there, and we had to beat them or they got the better price than us. So, my dad had a great big 1946 old truck. Dodge truck with a big flatbed, and that's what he did when he was young. He delivered produce, so we still had the same old truck. We still had produce out of that. Three of the 4 of us played basketball. My younger brother didn't play basketball. We were all in 4-H. All of us were in 4-H together. Back then, there were no vocational centers, so you went to school, and my senior year, they opened a vocational center and they offered vocational trades, but my mother said we couldn't go because it was our senior year and we needed to finish high school. So none of us went on to do any of that. I went to a little school called Greenford High School. Greenford Elementary, Middle, and all was all the same school. There were 200 kids, K through 12. They used to make all the stuff that we ate. All the community grandmas and moms would get together and they would really peel potatoes because the neighbor guy was a potato farmer. We would provide the little apples because we had an orchard. We provided what they used to call schoolboy apples, the little tiny apples. We used to put them for the trays. The guy next to us provided the beef because he was a beef farmer, and then the guy in town actually had a hog farm in the middle of town. Greenford had a little hog farm in the middle, so he would provide the pork. And then, during different seasons, like when we were harvesting corn, everybody got corn. When it was deer season, everybody got venison rather than beef, And so so the community was a very tight, small community. We never won a football. We won one football game the whole time I was in school. We were so excited. We had a parade.
Yeah.
But little tiny school. But then the state made us consolidate because we had money and the other school next to us didn't. So they put us together, and then everything changed. We lost a lot of respect as farmers because then we were just dumb farm kids.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And they told me that I would barely graduate from high school.
Not only that, you have a doctorate.
Yeah, I have a PhD at that point.
Yeah, you're like.
And I told my sister she was going to be a forest ranger. My sister just retired as a dentist.
That's the polar opposite.
Yeah.
It's like out in the woods or in.
And they told my younger brother has a degree in art. He actually started out in horticulture, but then he went to work in a nursery and just never left and stayed there in the plant nursery. And so then he went on to Youngstown State and got his art degree. But we did a lot of stuff with the community because everybody did at the firemen's. They used to have a firemen's festival because our fire department was volunteer, so everybody would donate to the firemen's festival, and we would have and everybody come by from everybody else. That's just the way it was, So
it sounds like y'all had really a very insulated community, like you had mentioned that y'all grow the food and then share it within the community, and like everybody was hands-on helping like kids eat at school. Do you feel like that's something that we are missing out on as
I really do, because really honestly you knew everybody, and there was no division of race or anything like that. The people next to us were a different race than what we were, and we never thought anything about it. I mean, everybody went to school together, and so we didn't know any of that because we had not grown up that way, we never really saw much of that till my daughter actually went to the school next door, and then we started to see that, but we never saw it in ourselves. We never saw any of that kind of stuff going on because you didn't. Everybody was, there were boys and girls, and of course that's the way it was divided back then. Girls had to wear dresses until we were in high school, and then we got to wear the pantsuits that were all the same. The ugly things.
The school uniforms, that's interesting too. And then like financially, like I know also having to wear uniforms and coming from poverty, even though you're wearing the same clothes, you could still tell who came from money and who.
Yeah, and
who
we wore. So we learned to sew. My sister and I could sew very well. I was in 10 years of 4-H sewing, and so we would make the one-piece outfits. You had a little top and the pants that matched and everything looked together. But we would make our own clothes. I made my own wedding dress. My sister made her own wedding dress.
I'll have to see some photos, by the way. A side note, I would like to see these photos.
Mine was all lace.
Because you also sew for the ice skating.
Yes.
Which is harder fabrics and harder patterns.
And I used to actually, I went off to, we had a big dairy farm, and my brother was supposed to keep the farm, the eldest son. But then he found a girl and left, so the farm fell to my brother and I. But I had gone a year to Youngstown State and said that I would stay at the farm and maintain the farm where he went to college at Ohio State, but then he left. So my brother and I got a call. I went to Ohio State then because he wasn't supporting me to go to college, so I went to Ohio State. And I get to Columbus, and my grandma calls me and says, "You need to come home." I said, "Grandma, I don't have a car. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I'm 3.5 hours away." She said, "You need to come home this weekend." And my grandma didn't know how to use a phone.
So you knew it was like the most important thing that
yeah. So I said, "Okay, Grandma." So I'd gone to. So there were several of us farm kids there were 4-Hers in the community, within 20, 30 miles from where we lived. And so I called Lloyd, and I said, "Lloyd, I need to go home." He goes, "Well, okay, we'll figure out a way to go home." So he actually had a car, so he and I went home, and he lived in Lisbon, so he dropped me off, and then he dropped me off at my place, and then went to his house for the weekend. Because we were farming. We were dairy farmers, but we had gone off to college, so we were farming on weekends. We'd go home farm on weekends, and Grandma looked at me, and she said, "We have to go to an attorney tomorrow," and I'm really confused, because I have no idea what's going on, and because I had just gotten to college, and I was not even 21 yet. And my grandma said, because, you and your brother now inherited the farm, and I'm confused here. And we went to an attorney, and she signed the farm over to my brother and I when I was 20 and he was 18, and we took the farm. We owned the farm, and I co-owned the farm the rest of the time with him until, but I went back to college. I got a degree.
You're a farmer and?
Yeah, we were farming on weekends, so then I dated this guy for a while, and he was a banker, but he didn't want to farm. But then I met my husband, who wanted to farm. So we would literally. Then when my dad got sick, my grandma would carry the dairy farm, but she did milking twice a day, but she couldn't carry the rest of the stuff. So we would come. My husband Steve and I would leave Friday after class, and we'd fly home, farm all weekend, and leave at 3:00 in the morning on Monday so that we could get to class by 8, because the College of Agriculture is every class at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
I learned that.
So we would go back to college, but that's what, so that I held the farm together all that time and tried to hold up with everything. And then my husband got the greetings from the president letter and sent to Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Yeah, this is one of the questions that you actually just led into. It says, were there anything that was like social, national, or world event that happened during your childhood or adolescence that would influence your thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, and relationship with others?
At the beginning, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but when I was in school, girls, we went to Columbus and everything and toured the campus and all Ohio State and all that kind of stuff, but they told us that women couldn't be veterinarians because we weren't big enough. And I was, 110 pounds soaking wet at that point. And I was told that I could never be a veterinarian because I was too small. I wanted to be a livestock, large cows, because I'd worked with cows all my life and pigs and all that kind of stuff. So I came back and I didn't go to college for that. I went to college originally for natural resources. When I moved from Youngstown State, I had a math major at Youngstown State, and then I moved to, which I think is funny, and then I moved to Ohio State, and then I was majoring in natural resources. So I spent my first year in agriculture classes dealing with natural resources, and I actually work for the the Ohio Department of Natural Resources in Columbus, and I actually took a bus to the office because it was out of town, and then I worked for them, and then a budget cut me out, so I didn't have that job. So when I came back, I decided that I wanted to teach.
Well, I'm glad that happened, unfortunately at the time, but now, because I wouldn't have met you if you hadn't become a teacher.
So I switched over to ag education, and that was tough because there weren't computers then. There wasn't any, when they switched me down here to Ohio State, they sent me to the Department of English. Lost all my paperwork, lost all my records for an entire quarter. We were in quarters at Ohio State. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't find my records. They didn't know where I was. They sent a letter to my parents telling me they had dropped out of school and I was in class every day. But they just couldn't find things, and I had to hand carry everything. My mother and I had to go back to Columbus right before Christmas and straighten out all the paperwork because they really thought I dropped out of school. I said, Mother, where was I going to go?
Yeah.
I was in Columbus. So I did live in a dorm for a year, and then my brother and I decided to get an apartment, and then my current husband, which was a friend of all of ours, we got a small house together and shared a house because then we could walk to campus. And because when I was going to Ohio State, I was actually working for the meat lab. We would get up early in the morning and cut all the meat that the university needed. They had a big lab for that, and so I always missed lunch and breakfast, and I was paying for something I couldn't get. So then the lunch ladies felt bad for me, so they would pack me a little paper lunch.
Oh, so you were providing them with the meat for the whole program.
Yeah,
right?
So they packed me a little paper lunch, and I would pick it up in the morning.
Nice of them.
Yeah, they were, and so I worked there for a year, and then I got recruited actually to be in Ohio State's marching band because they needed a seamstress, not because I was a trumpet player. They didn't need that part. They needed somebody who could sew. And I had 10 years of 4-H.
It seems like you can't say no to things.
No.
I can relate to that. It's
No.
like you're like, sure, why not? I'll add more to my plate until.
So I was sewing for the marching band. I got to travel all over. That was kind of fun though, because I did march Script, Ohio more than once because people got sick, and then so I was on staff for the Ohio State marching band, and I had we took our trips. Instead of taking an instrument, I took a sewing machine in a box with a case.
That's amazing.
And put uniforms together. So we and the traveling and stuff we did. So I went to the Rose Bowl. I went to the Orange Bowl when it was the Orange Bowl. It's now Citrus Bowl. But when I went to the Orange Bowl, I went to the Rose Bowl. We were the first. Ohio State was the first time they ever went to any bowl besides the Rose Bowl. I went to University of Michigan.
You're like,
and we had to go up there a couple times, but we weren't even allowed
super cold then, because isn't it like football's in the fall?
Mm-hmm.
And
it was cold.
Snows too. There.
Yeah, but we weren't allowed to. So Woody Hayes, who was the coach back then, would not let us, any of us, band, football players, anybody, stay in Michigan. We had to stay in Ohio and then drive over the border for the game and then come back. That's it. He just would not. So we stayed at this.
Was he worried about you guys getting in trouble in Michigan? Isn't the drinking?
Yeah, it's a very rival team. Back then it was violent.
Okay,
it's not so much now, but it was violent
right.
back then. And so, But the funny thing that happened was, so I was in the marching band, and so the staff was mostly women because we did music and sewing and all that kind of stuff. And so they had to stay at this, so back then, we could stay with families. And the families would host you for the night. You could sleep over at their house, and then we'd get up in the morning and meet and go. We do a concert for them in the evening, and so that was to pay and that was all for the communities to make money. They were small communities, so that was a big money maker for Ohio State's marching band to stay in the community. So we stayed at this house, and this guy was from the University of Michigan, and his wife was from Ohio State. He literally took tape all the way down to the house, and it wouldn't let it. So he wouldn't let. So when we sat to eat, because they fed us and everything, we had to all sit on the one side with his wife, and he sat on himself on the other side.
Hilarious.
It was pretty funny.
And who won?
Ohio State.
You beat him too?
Yeah.
That's even funnier. So he was outnumbered at the end of that table.
Yeah, and he was like,
and then he lost. His team lost.
Yeah,
That's
then,
funny to me.
But it was really it was fun to travel with them. It was a lot of but you had to keep your grades up, and in the marching band practice 2 to 3 hours every day.
Yeah.
It wasn't as
and
if
heat or rain or shine, right?
Yes, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so we practiced actually on a parking lot.
Which is worse, isn't it?
Yeah, we practiced on the parking lot because we couldn't. We weren't allowed to practice in the stadium.
Is it wool too? They wear wool.
Yeah, they wore those
Ew,
jackets were wool. Oh, they were awful. Yeah,
that's stinking.
that was terrible. So because I had to issue uniforms, so we had to fit them and because we had to have cross belts. There's a whole bunch of stuff in Ohio State's marching band, and so they had white spats for their shoes. I was always fixing them because they'd trip over everything, and then they'd tear the straps off, and I had to fix them. Had to hem their uniforms. I had to fix the spat. But traveling with them was fun. But I only did that a couple years because then they came to the junior class of agricultural education and said, we are short 36 agriculture teachers in the state of Ohio. So 20 of you are going to go to school your junior year, and you're going to do your student teaching your junior year, and you're going to go to classes in the summer, and you're going to start teaching in the fall.
And that was you. You got just what?
I was one of the 20. Yeah.
They took you up. That changed your life. Would you say that delegated a few?
Yeah, because there was Debbie Reynolds went up before us, and then Jeannie Bradley and I. There were only 3 female agriculture teachers in the entire state of Ohio. Debbie went before us, and then Jeannie Bradley and I went out together. And we are the ones that, we really set the motion for women in agriculture. So the next year, they get a front page paper of the Columbus Dispatch, Women in Agriculture, and we're looking at each other going, really? we just set this whole thing for you ladies to get all this. So I was teaching in Northeastern Ohio, and so Debbie and I and Ginny were in 3 different parts of the state, so we never really saw each other much except at state convention and national conventions and stuff. But and there wasn't computers, and there wasn't Facebook, and there wasn't any other communications. There was no other way to do stuff. So
were you guys teaching inner city or in rural areas? So
I taught in rural areas for a while, many rural areas. I went to Jefferson Union High School first, which would say they would actually place you in places. So I finished my so I never graduated until 3 years after I started teaching, because they had 3 mini courses over the 4th of July because there wasn't computers, you hand type everything, and then all your papers and stuff, so you typed them on the 4th, and then you turned them back on the 5th before you came home. So they did that purposely so you get all your work done. And then we would go from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. so we can get an entire quarter's worth of classes in 3 weeks. And then the next summer you did the next 3 weeks.
You're grading papers.
Yes.
While also turning in papers.
Yes.
To be graded. To get qualified to teach papers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
It was pretty crazy.
Well, did you have to pay for your education or did they
Oh, we had to pay for everything.
So you're paying also.
I got $500 worth of scholarships in 4 years of college.
That's insane.
That's all they gave us, and the College of Agriculture gave me that. So then I started teaching in the fall, and I taught in this little rural school. When I interviewed with them, I knew they were going to send me there anyway. But when I interviewed with them, the principal asked me why I wasn't in home ec. I actually told him I couldn't cook, but I really could very well. But I didn't want to.
As far as you're concerned, I burn water.
Yeah.
And what age would you say you were? You were between 18 and 25 at this period?
Oh, yeah, I was 22 maybe.
Perfect.
I was not very old. I was 21, 22, that age group. I turned over this. So I started college I started college when I was 17, and then I went 18, and then 19, and then I was starting just turned 20 when I was into teaching stuff already, and I was teaching this little tiny country school, and you know these boys were big farm boys, and then there was me.
You're the same age as them, essentially.
Yes.
Some of them probably were held back.
They were actually dating girls that were older than me, and one of my students who worked in the office came up to me one day and goes, I date women older than you. I said, that doesn't matter, I'm still your teacher.
I'm gonna grade you either way, yeah.
But they didn't know I was a female coming into ag, and so they'd set all these traps in the ag building for agriculture building. They had a snake in my drawer, and they, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So I opened the drawer and there's a nice little snake. There's a little brown snake. It's a snake, you know.
I love snakes.
Yeah.
I know you love snakes.
It didn't bother me a bit. I closed the drawer back up. So the funny, they hadn't opened the building yet. It was so they didn't have heat in the building. So we were down and we were meeting in the shop. We just used the shop part of it. So I have chairs. I have no desks or nothing. So I got chairs and a podium. So I'm sitting on the chairs waiting for my students to come down over the hill. And so they come down over the hill, they're gonna get this teacher. They're telling me I hear them saying all these things about how they're gonna get this teacher and he's gonna quit. He's gonna quit in the beginning of everything. And so they come in the room and they see me and there's a bunch of these boys and they're telling me all the things they're gonna do to the ag teacher. And I said, oh gosh, no, really, that would be awful. A snake in a drawer, and I'm going through the whole thing. And then I get up and say, hi, I'm your new ag teacher.
I'm your new ag teacher. That's from a movie. You're like, that is from.
They just about died. The first year was tough because I was so close to their age. And then I left that school in a year, and then I went to a vocational center, and I spent most of my time from then on in vocational centers teaching either agriculture production or agricultural business. And until I went to Cleveland, then I taught in Cleveland for a while. I taught food processing in Cleveland, which was scary, but because I issued knives to interstate kids in gangs. But that was so I got a lot of experience with that. I had a knife pulled on me in class and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So, but then I went to teach. Then I did different. Then I moved down here so my husband got hurt in Iraq. And so he got sent to Operation Iraqi Freedom when he was 55 years old. And I'm running a farm with my father who turned 80, and I had to have a knee replacement, and my grandma was sick, and we just couldn't hold the farm together anymore. And so we sold the farm and we moved down here when he got hurt because he was in medical hold for 3.5 years. And they were going to amputate his leg, and I couldn't hold a farm together like that with me trying to work. I was teaching full time. Then on top of it all, I get an offer from Kent State University to come teach for them while I'm working on my master's with them. And then they said, oh, we can't take your hours because they're over 10 years old. I said, they're in your university.
It's from you.
And they wouldn't accept it. So I had to go to AIU online while I was teaching high school and college.
So in the ages of 1825, one of the questions says, if you could go back and live those years again, would you have made the same choices?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because it was, I loved the farming part. I would have farmed anytime, but it was difficult and I would have stayed in agriculture. I love agriculture, everything about it. But some of the choices I had to survive, and like going to college and teaching college and teaching high school and going to college was a bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and luckily AIU was American Interscholastic University was an online college back then, which they didn't even heard of now. You'd never even heard of them back then, but they did have an online college. And so all your paperwork was due on Sunday night. So I would teach and farm Monday through Saturday, and then I would write my papers on Sunday, and I would submit them Sunday night. And then AIU did something interesting. You took one course at a time, and it was 3 weeks. And then you took another course 3 weeks. So you got your whole master's in 1 year by taking 3-week classes, and they just backed them up into each other. And so that's how I got that was the hard part. I would have liked to probably gotten a master's like everybody else, finished my master's with Kent State, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
That just didn't work out. So
you were very busy, it seems like. I know, like off of this, I know we've talked about this before about when it came to farming, how integrated your lives were with your personal farms, and how much responsibility it was to keep a farm running. And then do you feel like a sense of relief though, because you no longer had to put so much of your personal self into a farm Like you didn't really have a choice to buy the farm. You didn't have a choice to be a farmer. But
I loved it. I loved being a farmer. I would have, I'm too old now. I'm physically not able to do that kind of thing. That was hard work. Because we would fill a barn in a day with hay. And, it's 1,000 bales in each mile. And we'd do those in a day easy. And so I loved, and it was satisfying to do that kind of stuff. And I love milking cows. I loved everything about cows. I showed cows before I ever showed dogs. We showed cows. I had the All-American bull twice in Brown Swiss, but it was hard work. And if I could have done it again, I think Steve and I would have farmed a little bit differently. We were ahead of the game. We had a milking parlor when everybody was still milking in the barns. We worked with Ohio State, and so we were more progressive farmers. So at that time, they thought we were odd.
Yeah.
Because
but it was right now.
Yeah. Well, I know. It's all the things
you're always ahead of the game. First woman in agriculture, or first of 3 agricultural teachers.
But that's what it was. Because I looked ahead. I didn't look at, what was going to happen next. We look what's going to happen. What's going to be better for down the road. So when the original milking parlor had 3 stalls in it. Now it has 30. But things like, and rotates and all that kind of stuff. So we were ahead of all those things, and it was during. I would have stayed progressive then. I would have stayed ahead of things, but it was tough. When he got sent to Iraq, that was the hardest part because I just couldn't hold the farm together anymore, and my brother co-owned it and he wanted out, and so we just kind of sold the farm.
Yeah, that's what you were mentioning, that him being injured, and it was like 3 years. You said he was in the
medical hold
for 3 whole years.
Shipped all the way around the United States. He was at Walter Reed. He was in Fort Knox. And then they broke his leg in Fort Knox, and then they had to send him back to Walter Reed. Finally, we got him farmed out of the military into Cleveland Clinic because they were going to amputate his leg. And he was in a wheelchair. He came back to the farm in a wheelchair. What is a dairy farmer going to do in a wheelchair? I mean, I didn't have any, they didn't, back then they didn't give you accommodations. The military treated you like crap. I fought for those soldiers so many times. I went to Washington. I wrote letters. Because because he was National Guard, so National Guard was in the same foxhole as everybody else, but they were treated badly.
What years were those? Those like in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was there. He was a younger man when he went, but
yeah, you understand what and the treatment was terrible. And I finally got him farmed into Cleveland Clinic, and they actually taught him. They fixed his leg and put him back together. And then there was a backwoods country physical therapist in the middle of nowhere. He had a pool no bigger than this room, and he's the one who taught my husband to walk again. So my husband walks with a cane now, but I just couldn't. We couldn't hold the thing together anymore. There was just too because dairy farming is work, and it's twice a day, 365 days out of the year. So before he got hurt, we were actually milking 3 times a day. We were trying a new process where you milk 3 times a day. And then you got more production. It didn't cost hardly any more in food, but it was all these progressive things we were trying. And then Uncle Sam said, I think you're going to go play in the sandbox instead. And that changed things. So
I already know the answer to this question because we've already went over it, but it says, when did you know that you were an adult? Like when you think of the word adult and what you picture an adult, when did you know that you were one?
Probably 14.
Yeah.
Because we literally... So my grandma was getting older, and so she was, so she told me to take over the dairy cows, breeding programs and stuff like that, because we had this big round chart, and you turned it around, and that cow had to be bred then, and because somebody had to keep all the records, and grandma couldn't use a phone, she didn't know how to do any of that kind of stuff. If we wanted cows to be AI, artificially inseminated, not like AI would have
doing it yourself. Yeah.
I was doing it myself.
Yeah, we were talking about AI.
I was I trained myself to do that kind of stuff, and the guy would come around. It was called Select Sires back then. They would come around in a little truck, and they'd leave you little straws of semen, and you'd keep them in a frozen tank. And so I learned. I did all my own stuff. If a calf was born in a far pasture, you went and carried it back. You didn't have, because there wasn't all the like 4-wheelers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no tech.
No, it was all manual labor. Except for the milking parlor, and that was all modernized, but as modern as we could get it. But we had, but that was what, when you learn from a young age, you learn that you take care of stuff. So
the question was about early adulthood, when you were establishing your career, finding a mate, starting a family, and establishing your independence. We've covered this because you were very independent at a very young age in your career. Everything for you seemed to start really early.
mm-hmm.
So you kind of just immediately went from childhood straight to
Just work.
Just work. And one day we're going to get you retired and relaxed. But we can talk about finding a mate. So, like, how you met Steve?
At Ohio State University. So I was working, so I was in natural resources that year, and I had to stay for the summer to do an internship. And my brother was making me mad at the farm, so I said, I'm not coming home. I'm going to stay and do my internship. Because he was doing this, and he was going to, the eldest son.
Bravado.
So I stayed in Columbus, and I had to find a place to stay. So the dorms wouldn't let me stay there for the summer because they shut most of the dorms down back then. They don't now, but back then they shut them down. I was actually in a dorm with 3 girls. It was in the College of Agriculture had their own dorms, so there was 4 girls in a dorm room, and we had our own bathroom and our own shower. And then there was a study area that had 4 desks, and then it went to the locker room area where there was 2 bunk beds and closets and that kind of stuff. So I stayed there, but then I couldn't stay there during the summer, so I had to find an apartment. So I went to the closest. I walked to the closest apartment because I didn't have a car. I walked to the closest apartment and said I need to find a place. And this lady was managing the apartment where actually my husband was really the manager, but my husband was a marathon runner, so he was out running a marathon somewhere. And so she said, well, we have one apartment available. And so then when he came back, he was the apartment manager, and I was not used to dealing with a lot of older, mature men, because he's been in college. He's several years older than I am. So he would come to fix things in my apartment because everything was broke, because it was a rented apartment, so nobody took care of anything. So he would come and fix my lamp, but he never did fix it. I finally ended up fixing it myself.
It sounds like the story where, like, I can do all the things these men can't get.
He never fixed it. So he would come over, and he had to work. He started working a second job because he lived in the apartment for rent free, but he didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. He had to go to college, and he would come over to my apartment, and he'd say, I'll fix your lamp. He never did fix it. So I fixed it myself.
He's just yapping.
Yes, he was
fixing.
He was talking away and stuff. So that's how
adorable.
That's how we started. So we thought it was a big deal if you walked to IHOP, the International House of Pancakes. That was a big thing for the college because it was right there on the campus. And so a bunch of us college kids would get together, and the person who ran IHOP knew that we didn't have a whole lot of money. So he would give us big stacks of pancakes, and we'd split it up between all of us. So that was after when I lived in the dorms, I could never get the food because I was always working somewhere. I was with the band, so all afternoon on Saturday I couldn't get back to eat lunch. And I was working in the morning, so I couldn't get.
You can't have lunch because everybody talks to you while you're trying to eat lunch.
Like, that's the same thing. That hasn't changed. It doesn't work.
Please let Dr. P eat something in privacy.
I never did. So I learned not to eat without people all the time. So, but that's how I met him. I rented an apartment he was an apartment manager, and we just got along really well, and we understood work. And then I was trying to run the farm at home, and so he said, well, I'll drive you home, and we would drive back and forth, and so that's how it ended up being where it is now. We got married in 1976.
That's awesome.
We've been married since then.
That's a long time.
And I'd like to kill him once a day.
I was going to ask, is it normal to not always get along with your partner? But
no.
That's a side of...
No, he's challenging. He's very smart. My husband is extremely smart.
I know.
He has 2 PhDs, and he's really smart, but sometimes
2 family, 2 doctors. So what do you got?
I know. And my sister's a doctor too. So we went to he got awarded a big award from Cleveland City Schools for being a success story for Cleveland Public Schools. So we went up to this big thing he went to, and there was my sister who was a doctor, and I was a doctor, and he has 2 doctorates. And my poor niece said, "I'm just a teacher."
I'm in a room of learned doctors.
Yeah.
So you see, question 13. It has a blank. It says, in my opinion, middle adulthood is 35 to 65.
Oh, yeah, right.
So that's your opinion, right?
Yeah.
So you can be described as a time of blank. Do you agree? So what was your middle adult here? so this is a kind of a tricky question, and we don't have to stick to the script. It's just a
I have
suggestion.
worked every day of my life.
So in the time of work and perseverance, really.
Yes, I have never I've never gone on a vacation.
Yeah,
If it did not deal with dogs, my daughter is a national competitor for ice skating. She was second in the nation 5 times when she's competitive. She's now over 40, but when she was a competitor, she was, we were always traveling with her. So that was kind of a strange way to get into things because we were really all farmers. We had never done anything with farming, and we always had cows and competitive stuff. And then my brother, when my daughter was wee little, my brother worked in a nursery because we all worked with plants all the time.
Yeah.
And the nursery owner's wife, the roller skating rink's wife worked at the nursery. So she gave my brother a pair of plastic roller skates and told him that my daughter should learn to walk and skate at the same time. So she did. And she went to nationals when she was 8 years old, made it to nationals. And then she was 16th in the nation as an 8-year-old. Well, then she saw ice skating on TV and she wanted to ice skate. So then we're running, not only are we farming, but we're running to our skating training and our skating competitions. And, after she got into adulthood, she did adult skating, but she was, that part, I'm also a nationally ranked ice skating judge.
Yeah, you had mentioned that. You're like, did you know I also do judging for ice skating? I was
Yes.
like, what don't you do? It's crazy.
I'm a silver judge. I never became a gold because then I would have been judging her level, and I never wanted to do that. I stayed behind her always, and I don't judge as much because I am, I'm disconnected from ice skating right now because she's a coach now, and she does a lot of, she's adult, does her own things, but she's a coach and Carrie and places like that, so I don't do that much with her anymore. I do judge sometimes. I like to judge the little tiny skaters. I think they're fun.
They're adorable.
Yeah, I like that group, and I don't mind. I don't need the big ones.
Do you mentioned that you haven't really been on a vacation or a break, but your personality type is a lot like mine. Do you think that even if you were on a vacation or a break, you would enjoy it, or would you be thinking about what you needed to do, or is it harder for you to actually rest? If you need to answer that, I can pause this.
Just pause it, my husband. Can you do that?
Just a moment. That's perfect. Just answer them, and we can go as long as you feel comfortable.
So
the 14 was in later adulthood, the stage of life you're in now. I went ahead and filled this in. What for you because I already knew what you were going to say. Can be described as a time of work.
Yes, as always.
Yes. Do you agree?
Yes.
And how would you describe the stage of later life? And you can interpret that however it's not stringent.
Later life. When am I going to have this later life?
It's like
I'm 70 right now.
It's just a blur, right?
Yes,
it feels
it's
like
going to
just
be
a blur.
like. So we're heavy into dog shot right now, by the way. So as you know that, and
it's just running. It is.
So
when did y'all get into the dogs? Because this is really fascinating.
So when I moved to North Carolina in 2006, I went. What did I do with my weekends? We were showing cows, we were milking. I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning and the city was dead. Fayetteville was dead, and I go, what do I do with my life? I'm living in a little house in the city, and I had a partial knee replacement before I came down here. So I've got crutches, a lawnmower, a picnic table, a chair, and a bed. And that's it. I mean, that's all because nothing else. So we were coming down here, and the truck that we were driving broke down. So I had to come down in a little Kia. So I could only bring one of my clothes so it would fit in the Kia. And then my husband had to go back and then bring stuff down later. But I was lost. I didn't know what to do. So I was just playing around with dogs and stuff. And I met this lady who had Chinese Cresteds, believe it or not. And we were showing, she wanted to teach me how to show dogs. And my daughter found, actually we were looking at other dogs, and then we found Nitro, which was a really naked. When we were still in Ohio, we found, what was his name? Dobby before that. So we came down here, we rescued Dobby, and then we came down here. Dobby was naked. He looked exactly like the guy that carries the sock around, same nose and everything. So we rescued Dobby, and then we finally figured out what Dobby was. We didn't know who he was. He's just a dog with no hair. And so then we came down here, and then we started meeting people in the dog world, because what was I going to do? I needed to do something, and I couldn't I was teaching, and at the beginning I didn't have a car, and it's like, what do I do with my life? Because I really lost. Had a real disconnect with all my life because I'd always had livestock. I'd already had dogs. And then I had nothing. I had this little tiny plot with, and it was just. So we had to find something. So we got Dobby. We brought Dobby down to stay with me, and then we found what Dobby was, and then we went online and we actually found Nitro, and we found Gabby first out of Wisconsin. We shipped Gabby in from Wisconsin, and but she would have been a show dog, but somebody was trying to teach me how to show dogs, and she didn't teach me right, and the dog got terrified of the ring and never could make her back. So then we got Nitro. Nitro was naked. I mean, naked, nothing on, just a little tuffet on his head. But he was actually our first show dog, and then we just, we kind of liked it. It was nice to go places and do different
things. Now y'all do a lot. Y'all do like in a big one.
So we were in, we've been to Westminster now 4 or 5 times now. This is the first year we ever went to the National Dog Show. The one you're going to see on Thanksgiving, we were at that show. But of course, the political game plays, and we didn't win the day we needed to win, but he won every other day, so his name's A Taste of Fine Wine. But he did get his gold ranking when he was there. So
yes, he did.
So
we're huge Merlot fans.
He loves you.
He's a celebrity, yes.
He loved you. So
we love them so much.
And they had that's the kind of, so those were things that, because you can't just do one thing. In my life, I can't just do one thing. No. You could see that I'm busy doing 100 things because I'm just not one of these people, because I never did. We farmed all the time. I taught full time. I went to college. I taught college. And then Uncle Sam decided to take him all the time places, so I would run in a farm. So when I got here, I really needed a focus.
An outlet,
Yeah, someplace that wasn't just teaching. And teaching I was at St. Paul's first, and that lasted about 6 months. And then the state said, you need to move to 71st because we're going to have to close the program. And 71st, I lived in Fayetteville, so I came to 71st. I really never had that much trouble with that school. I mean, there was a lot of gangs and stuff there, but I just ran my world the way I needed to run it. And so then once I got into teaching, they actually recruited me down here, and they promised me a lot of things they didn't deliver. But I have 20 years in there now. Next July 1, I'll be 20 years teaching in North Carolina. They won't give me credit for I was teaching from Ohio.
You started out so young. When you're like ghost years. What happens with that?
They wouldn't give. So that's why I end up where I'm at now. And retirement is in the window sometime.
I was gonna say we're all vouching for you to get a break. So the question 15 is it's a loaded question, because I don't feel like you're done accomplishing things by any means. Because you're still doing phenomenal things with students and with your dog showing and dog breeding and stuff like that, and with your daughter and granddaughter. But it says, do you have a moment in your life where you look back and you feel really proud of something that you did?
First off, I don't have a granddaughter. I have no
I'm so sorry. I don't know why I thought
I have no grandkids at all.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of things that I have to do things to
grandpups.
I have lots of grandpups. I have lots of them. I have all of Marlon on. I want to. Making Ohio State's marching band was really something big. Winning many dog shows has been really fantastic. My daughter was having a child and raising a child and being part of their life that's probably the biggest accomplishment I ever did, was be a mother before anything else, because everything else fits in after that, because you got to be a mom first. And because farm life was so tough, you didn't have that. I did not want that relationship that I had with my mother. So I made sure that my daughter did not have that type of relationship. I think you need to be a parent first. You need to be family first always. And so those are accomplishments, like graduating from college. Those kind of accomplishments along the way are really important. And
you have a doctorate, and they said you were going to be a home ec teacher, right?
Yeah. So I just wanted to, if I graduated from at all, I just wanted to make a place for women to be.
You really do.
I think it's really important that women are accepted and not. My father thought he had 4 sons. he never treated us any different. I never knew what it was like to be treated like that till after I got out of my little community, because all of us were treated the same.
Yeah.
Boys and girls all played together. We went to school together. We didn't care about any of that kind of stuff. And then I saw life and reality and stuff. And so my daughter didn't even go to the school district we lived in. She went to the next school district over because of the way they were, because of the consolidation and the force of everything.
Gender equality is really important to you, treating people the same.
And that's why I try to do that. So I think, anything from making the band to graduating, with degrees and getting this job. This was a really good, I just wish I could have got this job earlier. I think I could have done so much more with this program. But I did save this program.
I do believe you did. I have heard from multiple people that this program would not be what it is.
They were going to close it.
Yeah.
It was,
well, I benefited from this program, so thank you. But also, I know a lot of my classmates and like my friend Lee. We spoke about Lee. You're making an impact on his life, and that I know that he's in good hands coming here. I cannot wait to see what you and Hannah. I feel like you're going to be really important.
I just don't. I don't judge people. I accept people as they are.
Yeah.
And I've always been that way. And I literally find something, ever since I was a little girl, I find something nice to say to somebody every single day. I don't care if it's walking down through Walmart's and somebody has a nice shirt on. Oh, yeah, that's a really nice shirt.
Yeah.
I just think because I know people that nobody says any positive things in their lives.
I'm the same exact way. I think about that every day. You can make such an impact on somebody just by pointing out something nice that you noticed. Don't be afraid to say something.
Yes,
Because,
and just say things. Just say, hey, what a great job you did, or hey, that looks really good, or do you want to talk about that? Let me tell me something, because I do the same thing at the dog shows, and I do the same thing, when I was in college and stuff. I always wanted people to think that they did one good thing in that day, even if it's just put a clean shirt on, a nice pretty shirt on, or said a nice thing. I just, every day of my life, I find somebody even if it's like on a weekend, I don't see anybody else. I send an email. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? A text message or something.
I do the same thing. It's so funny. I'll be like on Friday night or something. I'll just reach out to somebody I haven't talked to in a long time. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, I'm proud of you. You're doing really good. I see the good things you're doing. Just because your soul tells you to.
Well, I have this old lady that lives out by Hillsboro. She has dogs, and she's elderly now, and so I'll text her, maybe 2-3 times a week, just say, hey, how you doing, June? What's going on? And because she doesn't have anybody, her family moved, and she's by herself, and so she's got a few dogs. So you just gotta you reach out to people, and just because people need somebody to care about them.
Yeah. So this is exactly, we're just on track with these questions without even reading them, but it says, how do you want to be remembered, or what do you want to be remembered for? So like, what legacy is like money, wisdom, people would you like to leave for further generations? I feel like we've really covered that just now with like just being kind.
Being kind's number one. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Be kind, respect.
Be a good person. Like
just
fundamentals, right?
Yeah, just the fundamentals of life. Right. I wish children could learn that now.
I know. I don't know why it can't be taught either.
And it can be, but everybody's afraid to step up.
Yeah.
I'm going to sue you for this or what? No.
Yeah.
Be a nice person. Respect is number one.
We're raised like that.
And I don't care if you're this big or this big. Respect is important. Treat people with kindness. Treat people sometimes people walk all over me, and I know they do that.
Same.
But you know what? That's just the way it is.
And that'll be okay, right? I feel like I'm the same way people will do. My husband says a lot of times, like, say no more. I'm sure your husband says the same thing, but it's like, I have the time.
We don't say no.
We don't. One day. I mean, in the appropriate context, we will say no, but why not help people?
Why not give people a fair shot in life? Because we've had difficult students here, and I don't turn them away. I give them an opportunity.
I know that the women's group that we had in my class post-COVID, for a lot of us, changed our lives because all of us were moms, and then like going through COVID, and then getting an opportunity to go to school, like me, Shy, Laura, all of us, like this is like the moment that changed our lives.
COVID was horrible.
And y'all like really believed in us. You and Miss Bird, like I know each of us went off to do something different, but if we had any other school or any other teacher, I don't know that we would be where we are.
Because we believed it was going to happen. And
it was incredible to see that many women. Because I think it was like at least 14 of us.
Yes, we didn't give up on it. We didn't give up either. In spite of everything they did and everything that happened, it was kind of funny because when they had COVID, the cutoff was 65, and they told everybody it was 65 and over they could go home, and I could work from home.
And you're like, how am I going to do my job working from home?
And they said, and then the dean said to me, but you don't qualify. I'm 65. You know, like, can I go? Why don't I qualify? But I did. When I got one of those letters that said I was an essential employee, so I could come water the plants.
Keep the things alive.
Yeah.
So, if you could go back and change one thing about your life, what would it be? And you don't have to if you don't feel like there's anything you want to change. That's a hard.
Yes, it is, and I try really. I guess it's because I care too much, and I work too hard. I should have in my life in past. I should have taken more time for me, but I never did, and I never will. So that's not going to change.
When you say that's your advice you would give for me and people that are
I'm looking at you going, this girl looks a lot like me, younger,
I can relate all these things. I'm like,
because
I hope I do half of what you've accomplished, honestly. Even half would be a lot.
Well, here's the thing. I don't let anything get in my way. I try everything. I may not succeed, but I also try. I'll try all kinds of things. I learned to be a judge, an ice skating judge, because I watched my daughter all the time. And a coach looked at me one time and he said, you ought to be a judge. You know as much as half these coaches.
You're like, why not?
Okay, so I'll try that. And right now, actually, I'm learning to be a ring steward for the dog shows.
That's awesome.
A whole new thing. That's it right here. It does all the time.
Yeah, I was like, what is raining?
No, it's just that here. So I've actually done my first solo stewarding. So the steward is the person that calls the dogs to the ring and has, arranges the ribbons for the judge and everything like that. And of course, the first one I do by myself, which is during Wilmington, and it poured rain the entire time.
Outside?
Yes.
Oh, man.
So I kept moving the judge's stuff closer to the inside so it wasn't getting so wet.
Rain.
Because you're in charge of the ring. The judge just comes in and does her thing.
And the wet mud and everything.
Yeah, and then mud and the whole bit.
All the dogs wet. After
and my one dog, because I showed her the day. I only did it one day because I was showing the day before. But Chloe gets there and she's going, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Diva dogs.
Yes, but Anastasia wasn't like that. She goes, I'm plowing through this stuff,
Well, she's a mess and we love her.
Yeah.
So it says, like, if there's anything you would like to add or anything you would like to...
I just want women to know that they can. That they can do anything they need to do. It's a lot of work. It's twice the fight.
Yeah.
And to...
Definitely that.
When
Especially our industry.
Yes.
In the horticulture, agriculture industry.
It's come a long ways, though, because when I took this program over, it was almost all men. And then I used to get phone calls all the time. Are you, you're the guy that before me, his name was Jeff. Are you Jeff's secretary? No, I'm actually the departmental chair. And I, more than once, men would say to me, you're a woman. I said, yep, that's right.
Last time I checked, right?
Yeah, last time I knew. Because I truly believe that we can.
Yeah.
As women in general, we can make a lot of impact on a lot of things, but we also got to believe in ourselves, and sometimes that's hard because the society tends to make us not believe in ourselves. They call us
or
fat.
Compete with each other.
Yes, or compete. Yeah, that's
the worst thing because we are divided weaker.
Yes, and they know it, and
yes.
so that's what the men do. Yeah. And I can't understand all this because I think every person is equal all the time. When I've met big stars and stuff, like Martha Stewart was in the same hotel as us, but I never treated her I didn't think she was any different. She was a human being that had a dog, and we were having...
interesting she loves chows so much, all breeds.
Oh yeah.
And I heard she was
she was nice to us. She ate breakfast.
Well, you know what? That's the thing about women. They call us that if we aren't easy.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it.
And chows aren't easy.
No, they're not. But we had a great breakfast together.
Yeah.
My husband and I and
the
lady I was with. We all sat down and her handler, because she didn't stay in our hotel because it was a Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
But she came and had breakfast with us. We went to the place together. She had we went back to the hotel, had snacks together and stuff. She was just really kind because she didn't put a front on with us because we didn't treat her any different. Everybody was like, I said, hi, how you doing? Welcome to our table.
She's self-made too.
Yes.
Yeah, hardworking and self-made.
And
she found a niche and she excelled in it.
Right. And the same thing with like Dolly Parton. Mm-hmm. She's made herself what she is. I mean, you know, she's beautiful and built well, but she still had a struggle in life.
Oh yeah.
And as
Poverty
yes,
to exceptional wealth, but she still helps people.
one of my former students, had a house on the edge of Dollywood, and when that fire went through, she gave everybody that lived around there $1,000. So you could go to a hotel for a few nights and stay.
It's like, we don't deserve people like us and Dolly who do nice things for people. I'm gonna turn it off if that's okay with
Yeah,
you.
that's fine.
Yeah.
But so